Seeing her father buy a brand new car for her younger brother, the girl's face filled with disappointment. She stormed angrily into the house, only to find a brand new piano appearing before their eyes. It turned out their parents wanted to be fair to both children, so they had prepared surprises for each of them. The father asked his daughter to play a piece for everyone, but the girl did not look happy at all. She impatiently slammed the piano lid shut and turned to walk toward her room. The girl's name was Vera, and she had always dreamed of going to university, but her parents believed that too much education was of no benefit for a girl, and that finding a good man to marry was what she should be doing at her age. Vera crumpled all the books in her bedroom and threw them out of the window, and this behavior angered her father. He was about to go upstairs to scold her, but Vera came walking down toward him instead.
That's no way to find a husband.
I don't want a husband. How many times do I have to spell it out? I'm sorry you didn't have a daughter whose sole purpose in life is to hitch herself to a man. There it is. I'm not getting married.
Just as Vera was once again stating her position, her brother's friend Roland suddenly arrived. Roland was drawn to Vera's firm and decisive demeanor, and when he saw her picking up the scattered books on the ground, he stepped forward to help. But faced with Roland's kindness, Vera, still in a fit of anger, showed him no gratitude. When Roland read the lines of poetry Vera had written, he caught a glimpse of her youthful innocence, and the corner of his mouth lifted unconsciously. Vera's father always arranged the lives of his children according to his own ideas. Even though it was her younger brother Edward who truly loved music, the piano given to Vera was actually the gift he had always wanted most. Sitting in front of the piano, the siblings were overwhelmed with mixed emotions. In the days that followed, Roland stayed at Vera's home. After hearing that Vera dreamed of getting into a good university, Roland prepared some useful books to give to her, but Vera rejected his kindness. Edward had been very close to his sister since childhood. He understood Vera's struggles deeply, so he often pleaded with their father on her behalf. On this day, Edward threatened to drop out of school, hoping to force their father to agree to let his sister pursue her education. Her brother's actions moved Vera deeply. Helplessly, their father softened, and for the first time he compromised on the matter of Vera going to university. The young people spent their days together, fully enjoying a beautiful holiday. Edward's friend Victor had always secretly been in love with Vera, but Vera had always regarded him only as a friend. However, Roland's appearance stirred a different feeling in her heart. Roland was mature and composed, thoughtful yet slightly melancholic, and in front of him, Vera was willing to talk about her dreams. When Roland mentioned that his mother was also an accomplished writer, a spark of hope instantly ignited in Vera's heart. Roland also encouraged her to bravely pursue her dreams, and this warmth made Vera feel even more drawn to him. At the same time, Roland's holiday came to an end, and Edward and Victor also had to return to school. They said their goodbyes with great reluctance, and Vera seemed to have endless words left unsaid. After the three young men left, Vera often wrote letters to Edward, hoping to learn more about Roland through her brother. The brief happiness of the holiday lingered deeply in Vera's heart. Unexpectedly, just 1 week later, Vera received a reply from Roland. In the letter, Roland had even written a poem especially for her. His words were warm and full of strength, and the feeling of first love began to grow in Vera's heart. Not long after, Vera also left home, accompanied by her aunt. They arrived at the university campus. However, the academic advisor showed little enthusiasm toward the ordinary-looking Vera. Arriving here did not mean she could enroll smoothly. Vera needed to take the standard entrance examination, and only after passing the review could she officially begin her studies. But just after finishing the exam, Vera discovered a major problem. Among all the students, she was the only one who had answered in German. Yet apart from German, Vera knew nothing about any other foreign language. The waiting period was long, and during this time, Vera had no contact with Roland, but in her heart, his presence appeared again and again. Just when Vera had lost hope of being admitted, a letter suddenly arrived from Oxford University, and she was accepted as she had wished. However, her father looked deeply worried. That day's newspaper carried heavy news, as the situation in Europe was shifting and war was imminent. Having never experienced war, Vera did not realize the seriousness of the situation. Coincidentally, Edward's military academy was holding a swearing-in ceremony, and Vera went with her parents to visit her brother's school. There, Vera saw Roland, whom she had not seen for many days. After the ceremony ended, Vera confronted Roland about why he had not kept in touch, only to find that Roland had been carrying her letters with him all along. He explained that as reserve soldiers, they had to be ready to go to the front lines at any moment, undergoing intense training. leaving them with no extra time to handle personal matters. But Roland's act of treasuring her letters was enough to prove how important Vera was to him. Just as the atmosphere became perfect, Roland boldly confessed his feelings. Just as Vera did not know how to respond, her mother's sudden appearance interrupted the beautiful moment. However, during her time at Oxford University, they had more opportunities to see each other. Yet every meeting took place under the watchful company of her aunt. In order to have some space of their own, they shook off her aunt and ran to a secluded place to share their true feelings, but they would still end up being caught by her aunt. One day, Roland once again asked Vera to meet him and told her that he was about to report to the War Office. Young people are always filled with passionate determination when it comes to defending their country. Facing Vera's worries, Roland reassured her that the war would not last long and that he would return soon. But as wounded soldiers from the front lines began to return one after another, Vera grew increasingly uneasy about the war. Rather than worrying about the situation itself, she was more concerned about Roland's safety. At a time when the front lines were in urgent need of medical personnel, Vera decisively applied to her mentor for a one-year leave of absence, volunteering to go to the front. The mentor could not understand why Vera, who came from a well-off family and had finally earned her place at university, would make such a choice. But when she thought of her own brother whose fate on the front lines was uncertain, she agreed to Vera's decision without hesitation. Vera told Victor about her decision. In order to ease Vera's burden, Victor lied and said that he already had a girlfriend. Hearing this, Vera felt very happy. Every day, the newspapers on the streets were filled with the names of fallen soldiers, and Vera's desire to leave school grew more urgent. Without her parents knowing, Vera finally arrived at a temporary hospital behind the front lines for training. The head nurse first emphasized that any girls who lacked the mental strength should leave early, but the stubborn Vera chose to stay. 1 month later, they were transferred from the rear to the front lines. At that moment, everything she had feared appeared vividly before her eyes. Every day, large numbers of wounded soldiers were brought in. The marks left by the battlefield were always too tragic to bear. Every minute, countless people stopped breathing right beside them. One day, Vera's brother came to visit her. Edward actually did not meet the requirements to go to the front due to his poor eyesight, but because of the shortage of manpower, he was still enlisted. Edward introduced the companions who had come with him to Vera, and even more exciting was that Roland, whom she had not seen for a long time, was also among them. When Vera rushed eagerly toward Roland, he unexpectedly appeared very cold. After being shaped by the war, his temperament had completely changed. Facing Vera's concern, he brushed past her indifferently, and the man before her suddenly felt like a stranger. When the young people reunited, the liveliness of the past was gone, and the atmosphere was heavy. Vera was confused, and she chased after Roland, but even the slightest touch made him react instinctively. At that moment, Vera understood that war could have a devastating impact on a person. After calming himself, Roland said that he often found himself wanting to get married and live an ordinary life with Vera, but reunions during wartime were always brief. And the next day the boys left again. In the following months, they kept in touch through letters, and at the beginning of every letter, Roland would always write, "I am safe." This simple sentence gave Vera endless hope and comfort. Soon, Vera received an urgent message from her father, saying that her mother was critically ill and that Vera should return home as soon as possible, perhaps to see her one last time. But when Vera returned home, she discovered that it was all a lie. Her father simply did not want both of his children to leave them. Her mother was perfectly healthy, but on the third day after Vera returned, a phone call plunged her into despair.
Vera. Roland's dead. Roland's dead, Vera.
Roland was dead. When Roland's belongings were sent back, Vera finally accepted the fact that the man she loved, who had once been so alive in her heart, had truly disappeared from this world. Roland's death only strengthened Vera's resolve. Ignoring her father's attempts to stop her, she returned once again to the war hospital. By now, the hospital was overflowing with even more wounded. One nurse often had to care for dozens of patients. They worked day and night without rest. not daring to relax for even a second. Ironically, they not only treated their own soldiers, but many enemy soldiers were also brought there for care. These were the same people who had taken the lives of their loved ones on the battlefield. Yet Vera still had to save them here. But such a mission was not something they could control. Those in power who started the conflicts did not care about their lives or deaths. The wounded brought here no longer had any distinction between friend or foe. In just a few days, the beds inside were no longer enough. In the open fields, stretchers were packed tightly with severely injured men. Vera was shocked by the sight before her, but after only a few seconds, she returned to her work as usual. It was here that Vera discovered her brother Edward. At that moment, Edward was barely alive, hanging by a thread. Fortunately, he received emergency treatment, but due to severe infection, he remained unconscious for 3 days and 3 nights. Edward was lucky, and after 3 days, he woke up. When Edward opened his eyes and saw his sister, the first thing he said was that she looked like an angel appearing before him. Then Vera told her brother that she had recently received a letter from Victor, but the moment Edward saw the letter, his expression grew even heavier. Victor, who had been working in logistics behind the lines, had gone missing during a transport mission. It was clear that this letter had been found among his belongings on the battlefield. Hearing this, Vera held Edward and broke down in tears, but before Edward had fully recovered, he received another order, and this time he would be sent to Italy, where the situation was even more complicated. Both of them knew that this farewell meant the chances of meeting again were painfully slim. Half a year later, Vera's mother fell into severe depression, and Vera returned home once more. The once lively house had become lifeless, and her mother said that during those 6 months, their factory had closed down. They had dismissed all the workers and servants, and spent most of their savings on food. Even then, they often could not buy enough, and one could only imagine how desperate the poor must have been. Vera decided to stay for a while to take care of her family. One day, Vera saw the postman walking toward her house, and her heart began to race with anxiety. 2 minutes later, her father's cry of anguish echoed from downstairs. Hearing that cry, Vera instantly understood everything. Edward was gone, and he had gone to join Roland and Victor in another world. Vera could not even bring herself to face her parents' grief. She ran alone to the hillside where she used to play with her brother, releasing all of her emotions. In the time that followed, she continued working at the war hospital until the end of the war. The streets were filled with celebrations of victory, but Vera remained trapped in endless sorrow. For a long time after returning home, she quietly revisited the past, trying to heal the pain within her heart. One day, when Vera encountered a German mother in a church being publicly condemned by the crowd, she rushed into the crowd and told everyone a story from her own experience.
I lost a brother in the war, and my fiancé. I can't make sense of it either, except when I held the hand of that German, it was their hands too that I was holding. Their pain was the same pain, their blood, the same blood. Our grief is the grief of hundreds and thousands of German women and men. I speak to those of us who were left behind. The mothers, sisters, women, we send our men to war. I fought my father to let my brother go. Because we think it's the right thing, the honorable thing. Was I right? Can I find the courage to accept there might be another way? Perhaps their deaths have meaning only if we stand together now and say no. No to killing. No to war. No to the endless cycle of revenge. I say no more of it. No more.
After the war, everything in her hometown seemed the same as before, yet nothing was truly the same anymore. It was as if the war had left no trace on this land.
They'll want to forget you.